Hello, how's it going, everyone? So, I have another video for you guys today, and this one's going to be actually about a general framework or a concept that John and I are talking about a lot. This is what we've seen in accounts that we've been implementing the strategies in, and this is sort of the, I guess, thing that we've noticed just working in the industry year after year after year, and sort of seeing what trends are working, why they're not working. And so on here, I actually have this super amazing, spectacular drawing of a teeter-totter in my Miro dashboard. And on the right hand side, I know these are obviously different sizes, so it'll make sense here in a moment, I promise. But we have over here on the right hand side conversion-based bidding, which is red and a little bit smaller in terms of the audience size, and it's also where everyone is focused on in the teeter-totter. And then we have the other side of things, which is a general, I guess you could say, traffic buying strategy on Meta and Google. And this audience is obviously way bigger than this conversion-based bidding audience, right? So if we pause here and we say, okay, we have a teeter-totter and we have the larger audience over here and the smaller audience over here. Well, why is the teeter-totter leaning that way to the right? And it's because it represents what everyone's focus is. So everyone right now is focused on conversion-based bidding. Like 99% of agencies, 99% of companies. Honestly, I want to say 100%, but there's always probably that 1% that isn't. But a very, very, very large portion, if not everyone, is focused on conversion-based bidding. And what that means is that everyone's using the same exact tools, the same signals, the same everything, and just changing their creative, right? That's the only variable is the creative, not the actual algorithm that's going out and finding those users, which means that if you have one user that shows a signal for, let's say, buying, I don't know, shirts, then every single person that's bidding that has a shirt brand or a clothing brand is going to go after that person, and whichever ad or creative is the best is going to win in that auction. And so it's sort of like, hey, okay, this user showed an action, go crazy, right? And everyone just jumps into the fray, bidding, wars happen, and that's essentially why we're seeing CPMs go up. Now, obviously, a recent example of this would be the Black Friday sale, or even just, pushing towards the election because there's more people bidding on, ad placement for specific users. Therefore, your CPMs are going up more and more. And so the demand for the actual traffic has just gone up. But now that things have kind of cooled down, we're seeing the opposite effect happen. At least I haven't yet entirely, but I'm starting to see it happen in some accounts right now. So it's not as dramatic as it was previously, but besides the point, everyone is using conversion-based bidding, and so there's a huge audience pool that is not being utilized, which is the traffic buying. So to kind of, give a little quick reminder of the two different versions of this, so I'll do like the Google Ads version and then the Meta version. So conversion-based bidding in Google would be like maximize conversions or target CPA, and this would be something like you're optimizing towards lead forms or towards purchasers or whatever the case is, right? Some sort of bottom of funnel action. Whereas the traffic buying side of things would be like maximize clicks, manual CPC, anything that's not gearing itself towards an actual event or action, and more so towards just a further up the funnel, I guess you can say action per se, I guess, or interaction with the ad. On Meta, it could be something like a traffic campaign versus a, conversion-based campaign, right? Pretty straightforward, pretty similar, almost the exact same as Google, right? And so conversion-based, however, on Meta is a little bit different. We'll get into that in a moment here, but just wanted to kind of give you guys the discrepancy between those two. So with that being said, though, you might think, oh, well, why don't people go more into the traffic buying side? Because you're saying it's more profitable. Why aren't more people doing it? And the simple answer is it doesn't look good and it's hard to track. So in order to actually see the effects of it, you have to be advanced enough to be able to say, okay, this increase in going after this side of traffic translated to my conversion-based campaigns getting better, right? And so this is why there's sort of like this issue with a lot of marketers, is that they don't necessarily know, or it's harder to track the top of funnel interactions versus the middle of funnel and bottom of funnel interactions. And these platforms have gotten so good at figuring out who's ready to buy that it's essentially just everyone's bidding on middle of funnel users and not many people are bidding on top of funnel users as much, right? People are still optimizing for NCAC on conversion-based bidding strategies only. And it works to a certain point, but you hit a ceiling a lot faster than you did previously. And in order for you to get an edge on people, you have to have really good creative. But the good news about this is that not many people are optimizing based on the algorithm. They're just optimizing purely based on creative. So there's a whole blue ocean of traffic out there that is not being captured at all. And John and I have shot videos on this a few times now where we're literally able to scale accounts, and we're seeing essentially a translation of a 1-to-1 ratio, which was like 2015, 2016 numbers. So this would be something like you put in $1 and you get $1 out right away, or in the process of the lag time, you get $1 out. And so it translates to an NCAC being essentially the same thing, or how much you're paying for a new customer. If you don't know what NCAC is, it's how much it costs to acquire a new customer. We've been noticing that when you scale up these top of funnel campaigns effectively with decent creative, it doesn't have to be the best creative, you actually translate to a 1-to-1 ratio on scale, which is awesome, right? Because normally when conversion based, you put in $1 and you get maybe like 50 cents out, and then you try to scoop that up by optimizing, way further down the funnel on LTV, and sort of, scoop that up. Or maybe you have a better deal and a sale happens, or your creative is so good that it, conveys the message a lot better than your competitors, and so a lot more people buy from you because your brand looks better or feels better, has better, specific I guess you can say features of the product, whatever the case is. But on the traffic buying side, I want to point out that it's very, very dangerous as well, because you're not really focused on letting the algorithm optimize for you. It's very heavily manual optimizations. And the reason for that is because you're not really optimizing towards a goal that's essentially keeping you in like the safety net of this audience over here, right? And so on the outskirts of here, and I don't know if I could draw this in like let me see if I could do like a little mirror bar. I'll create another like little circle. So if we were to say like we have like the outskirts, I don't know why, I'll put this as yellow. We'll put this yellow. Not the best example, but if we have like something like this, it's like, a certain pocket could be like really bad on, like, let's just say spam, right? So you're not really getting qualified users. People aren't really interacting with, your platform or your website as well as you want, because it's not real traffic. You're wondering, why are these people not converting? And it's because the traffic is essentially false. And so that's the issue that a lot of people run into when they get into the traffic buying side of things. And so, and I'd honestly say this is probably a little bit bigger than that. Yeah, it's probably more more like that. But essentially what happens when people get in that scenario is they, oh, okay, traffic doesn't work. Let's go back to where we're safe, and let's go back to conversion-based bidding. And what they forget is the entire audience surrounding over here that just is not showing these signals. And so what we've been doing to actually get this audience, or at least find this audience on like a manual standpoint, is using, number one, like search. Just being on search in general is a pretty safe network, just because you can see specifically what search keywords you're showing up for, and search tends to not have that much bot traffic on it. I mean, there is a lot, but in comparison to all the other platforms, it's very, very low. And if you're getting good keywords and good placements, then you can manually optimize that, right? You're optimizing for the placements and the overall interaction rate, not necessarily the actual end result of conversions. You're looking at that more holistically on the entirety of the business, not just the traffic buying side of things, right? We're talking about a full funnel process here. And so when we look at this, we say, okay, so search is a pretty safe bet for traffic buying that we've tested, that we know works really well in Max Clicks, for example. And we have strategies that, interact with both of these that we share in our school community, but also even on Facebook. Now, a lot of times people, like I said earlier, push on just the general traffic on Facebook. And the issue with that is that it does go after people that are not necessarily, like fake users, essentially, right? People that are not really interested in your product. And so it's a lot harder on Meta to segment out where those users are coming from. Whereas on Google, you have more control. Like you could go on just search or just YouTube or just display, even though I wouldn't recommend that. But you can kind of segment out the mediums more. Whereas on Meta, you can't do that as well, because the users overlap so much. And so when we look at Meta, we actually deploy a very, I guess you can say it is traffic, but it's further up the funnel conversion-based bidding. So it acts like a traffic campaign, because we're able to find users that are interacting, like they're, coming to the site, not bouncing, and we're able to track that with Wicked Reports. And we say, okay, they've been on the site for maybe like 30 seconds, a minute, whatever the case is, and then they leave, we know that that's a real user versus someone that shows up and does an action that we want them to do, like, take the quiz or add to cart or whatever the case is in like 5 seconds. That's not really a real user, and so we would pause those ads and then rotate to another ad. So to kind of put this in a nutshell, because I know I'm kind of rambling a little bit here, is traffic buying is extremely underutilized. There's so many tricks to get high quality traffic to your website. You just have to benchmark properly. So for example, like bounce rate, understanding the click-through rate, if that's improving. And actually a quick little golden nugget for you guys is that the default from what we've seen inside of Google for traffic bidding is meaning that if we're on just conversion-based bidding but with no signal at all, right? So there's no like conversion that's optimizing for, it optimizes towards click-through rate. So with that being said, we've seen that similar scenario happen on Meta where it's just getting super, super low CPMs, and it's actually optimizing towards the most interacted ad that gets website visits, because that's the actual interaction that we're pushing into Meta to say, hey, view content is what we want to optimize for, so let's optimize for click-through rate. And the reason why we did that was because we saw it on Google work really well. By default, it was actually just a fluke, and then we translated it over to our L0 approach on Meta in order to drive a lot of new traffic to the site for cheap, that's highly qualified, that then translates into your conversion-based campaigns looking better. So this is, like I said, a little bit of a ramble here, but I think that as marketers, it's our job to understand what the market is doing, right? So like Performance Max came out on Google. We right away said, okay, let's try it out. Let's test it. Worked really well. Google was prioritizing it. And then immediately we just started seeing it drop off and immediately go into warm traffic, because most of the market ends up running Performance Max. And then it becomes essentially just too much, like there's too much people in the marketplace for it to be as effective as it was previously. And so the same thing happens inside of Meta, just on a ad creative perspective, as well as just running Advantage Plus. Everyone's doing that. So many people are doing it. And so be aware that whenever you're running these campaign types that are very popular, you can get yourself in the scenario where you're limiting your growth. And yes, in some cases, it could be fine because you are not at that wall yet on scaling. So it's really good for small businesses. But if you really want to look at like long-term growth and look at, quality over quantity in terms of just getting as much good traffic as possible versus just overpaying for traffic, and it might convert, might not, try traffic, see how it feeds your conversion-based bidding strategies, and yeah, kind of go from there. So figured I'd just kind of share this general concept for you guys, hear me ramble for, a couple minutes here, or I guess longer than a couple minutes. But I'll see you guys in the next video. We're going to be having more talks about what we're seeing in the market, though, some benchmarks to kind of go off of, and kind of expanding a little bit more on the lives that John and I are doing on a regular basis. So anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video.